Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video.
I've been married to my wife for 11 years now, and never in my life did I imagine I'll be thinking of getting a divorce at the age of 54. So, I met my wife when I was 39, and we had a significant age gap. She was 27. At the time, and it didn't really matter because I've always believed in the philosophy that age is just a number and feelings transcend everything else. We dated for 3 years and lived together for a year before eventually getting married. No one can say we rushed into it because we really did feel each other out before deciding on marrying, and I knew about her son from the start. I even made sure that her son was comfortable with having me as his stepfather before moving on with our relationship. After getting married, I took on every responsibility of a father, even though the kid wasn't biologically mine. And I didn't mind anything. In fact, I did it all happily as I had the resources to support him in every possible way, and it always felt like I'm cheering on my own blood. When the time came for him to go to college, my wife told him that I have already done enough and they'd take a study loan to support his education. But I told them both that I have the money and I don't mind supporting him at all. I insisted on letting me take care of it because I knew how big of a burden it'd be for that child to live the rest of life trying to pay the thousands of dollars he used to study. So he went on to become an engineer. He's now about to be married, and when he told me about his plans for the wedding, I told him that I want to sponsor him. For the first time, he didn't argue with me and told me that he was actually hoping I'd offer to help as he was in a really tight spot at the moment. Apparently, the wedding was out of his budget, but his fiance was refusing to cut off anything. She wants the wedding of her dreams, and nothing short of a 6 feet trail would do. So I just laughed off his awkwardness and told him I'm always here to help. In all these years, I've considered him as my own son, and he shouldn't feel shy about asking me for help. His wedding is set for 3 weeks from now, and about 2 weeks ago, I noticed something that put me in a bind. So it was a pre wedding party we threw for the kid, and many people who were invited were long family friends. Some even knew my wife's ex husband and saw Jack when he was just in diapers. The party had a lot of alcohol, and we were all being very liberal about the amount we consumed. One of these old friends of my wife actually bought Molly at the party and asked my wife and I to join him in the fun. I'm the kind of person who drinks a couple of drinks 2 or 3 times a week, while my wife smokes once or twice a day and drinks 3 to 4 times a week. I wouldn't call ourselves heavy drug abusers, but also we weren't against dozing up. But I politely refused the offer, considering I'm hitting my 50s and also I was one of the hosts. But my wife said she'd give it a try and took one of the tablets. I don't know what kind of experience she went through, but I saw her getting extra touchy with her friend who offered the MDMA, and at one point, he lay down on the couch and she even got on top of him. When I asked her what she was doing, she got back down and nothing else happened, but I was a bit weirded out by the whole situation. Before you all start telling the MDMA side effects, I should mention that I already know people get touchy feely after taking Molly just to feel grounded because they don't have a sense of weight, gravity, or their surroundings. And that's why I didn't make too much of a fuss out of the situation. But I did talk to my wife the next day when she got sobered, and what she said made me even more uncomfortable. She said that I'm being insecure because I'm getting old and she's still 40. That's the first time I thought that maybe something is going on, and she is using my age to gaslight me into believing I'm overreacting because of insecurities. So, just to be safe, I installed a camera in the living room, and guess what I found? When I went out to work, and when my wife should technically be out for work too, she was staying at home. First, I thought she took the day off to rest or for other business. But then the same friend who she was getting all close with at the party came over, and nothing about them kissing on camera was my imagination. They left the living room to go to our room and came out about 2 hours later when it was time for me to come home. I've lived long enough to not make excuses in my head and try and justify the situation. So the moment I checked the recording, I showed it to my wife and didn't even wait for an explanation from her. I told her to pack her bags and get out of my house. There's no way I'm letting her stay with me after catching her red-handed. But that's not the only thing I did. I also called Jack and told him that I'm not going to sponsor his wedding anymore and he can blame his mom for messing up all our lives. I did love him as my own son, but after what my wife did, I'm not obligated to help her or anyone related to her, and unfortunately for Jack, that includes him. Would you have done anything different if you were in my place? Do you really think I'm an a-hole here when I spent 11 years of life taking care of my wife and her son, only to end up being cheated on? I can't believe how many of you call me an a-hole for not expecting my wife to cheat on me. Do you honestly think that just because my wife and I have an age gap of 10 plus years, it's okay for her to cheat on me? So anyone who marries someone younger than them isn't allowed to feel hurt or betrayed just because they should have seen it coming? Sounds to me that some people in this subreddit need a reality check and need to go through this to know what it feels like. Anyway, my wife tried to talk to me about the wedding and even tried to apologize for what she did. But I wasn't having any of it. Should I really let her have a chance to explain herself and try to manipulate me into thinking that somehow what she did was okay? If she was having issues in our marriage, she could have talked to me. Maybe we would have discussed it and come up with a solution. But she chose to go outside and seek things someplace else, and even had the nerve to lie to my face and use my age as a selling point for her lie. There's no forgiving that, and I know for a fact that whatever she has to say wouldn't make it any better. So I blocked her from everywhere. The only thing she'd be getting from me now are the divorce papers. Jack came over to my house today, and I knew that it wasn't his fault that his mom turned out to be a lying cheater. So I let him in, and we sat down to talk about our situation. He told me straight away that he isn't supporting his mom for what she did, and they've been fighting about it a lot too. He said that he's been thinking about uninviting her to the wedding because if it came down to choosing between her and me, he wants me to be there. He said that even though I came into his life a bit late, the memories we shared were the best part of his life, and he thinks of me as his real dad. He's just as much hurt as me because of his mom, and he wanted me to know that he's on my side. He also said that I shouldn't think that he said all that stuff just so I'd reconsider sponsoring his lavish wedding, because he meant every word he said. I was moved by his words and expected that what I did was a bit over the line and I shouldn't have been so dramatic. I offered to give him the money, but he denied it and told me he ended up taking a loan to pay for the wedding and I shouldn't worry about it. He made me promise that I'd attend his wedding and then left the house. It's in a week, and I'm conflicted if I want him to uninvite his mom or just go let her be. So I attended the wedding, and it was a really beautiful ceremony. The whole thing screamed money, and I can't believe he pulled it off. I gave him $5,000 in a check as his wedding present and planned to wire him more money later because no matter what I say to myself, I couldn't deny the fact that spoiling him made me happy, and he really is my own son. I can't punish him for his mom's deeds. As for my wife, she wasn't invited to the wedding, and I was kind of grateful for that. I have filed for divorce and I'm hoping to hear from my lawyer soon enough about the proceedings. It would have been really awkward if she was here, and we met because there was no telling what I would have said or done. I'm single again, and it's not as fun as people make it out to be. My divorce was finalized, and thankfully, it was easy enough as she agreed for mutual settlement. I didn't look for any paybacks for what she did. I don't want to waste even one more second of my life on her, as I think my time is limited. I'm planning to go on a vacation soon, just to put this whole thing behind me and not live in regret. NTA, I don't think you're the a-hole. If I had to sacrifice almost a decade of my life just to find out my spouse is a cheater, I'd be pretty pissed too. YTA, it was all good until you told me you decided not to sponsor the son's wedding. It's not the kid's fault that your wife likes another man. And just because your pride is hurt, you are taking it out on him. As much as you have the right to be mad, you're taking it out the wrong way. I'll get it out of the way before everyone claims the obvious. No, I don't really like my sister in law, 31, but I love my brother and want him happy, just like I want the rest of the family happy and peaceful. I found a lot of different perspectives in whether what I said was warranted or not. If I'm wrong, I'll accept it and give a sincere apology. Here's the context. My sister in law has health issues. What exactly? I'm not sure, though. Both her and my brother have mentioned severe back problems and being close to obese. Because of a past job, her back is messed up, her words, that give her a lot of limitations. When they discussed having kids, she went to a specialist who said it would be downright dangerous and unwise to get pregnant in her current state. They gave her exercises to strengthen her back, discussed cutting out junk food, and set up frequent appointments so she could be in a healthier state when trying for a child. In my brother's own words, she did it for a week. Then she got pregnant and had my niece, who I love dearly. The problem is, my brother is usually working. There were extra med bills because of extensive recovery and treatments during her pregnancy, and now she couldn't work and is trying for disability while my brother working overtime so they're not evicted. My sister-in-law is unable to carry my niece who is now 3. She's unable to keep up with her and usually has to have a relative over to babysit and help sister-in-law around the house. It was my turn. My sister-in-law wasn't pleased by this, and she was laying on the sofa with my niece trying to talk to her. I guess sister-in-law was having a bad day because she screamed that my niece and everyone else in the family, hers and my brother's, was the reason she was like this because everyone pressured her to have a kid on their terms, and they have no idea the pain she was in. At that point, I told my niece to go play while I reminded my sister-in-law she was the one who didn't follow doctor's orders and was incredibly stupid and selfish for having my niece, and especially now because she's growing up without a mom. AITA? NTA. What other words would you use to describe this situation? Maybe foolish instead of stupid? Selfish was pretty much on the mark, though. I do not have a better replacement adjective. Sometimes the truth is not pretty, and under normal circumstances it would not be your place to give an opinion. However, because you are apparently part of the caregiving volunteer staff, this has impacted your life as well. You have a right to express your feelings since you're sucked into this situation. Also, what she said around your 3-year-old niece skates dangerously close to sounding like, I don't want you, to a small child. Your niece won't understand at 3, but she will as she gets older. Your sister-in-law needs to make sure she's not in the habit of complaining like that in front of her child. NTA. The one who will suffer here is your niece. She was a wanted child. As you said, both sister in law and brother were eager to conceive. But now she has become an unwanted child by what seems to be everyone, you, sister in law, family, and possibly brother. She is the main sufferer. Not your sister in law and not you or your family. She will grow up without two active parents, and honestly, without daily help with all of you all. I don't know how she would be taken care of. If she can't pick up her 3-year-old daughter, then she can't likely care for her either. This sounds like a potentially dangerous situation for your niece. And also, now you all are hooked into for life to take care of this child. This may limit your future, as you may feel obligated to care for this child as it is your own. If she could only follow the health regimen suggested by her doctor for a week, she likely only took her birth control for a week as well. If she had such a bad back injury, how the hell was she having sex? That sounds painful as hell. Also, how were they protecting against pregnancy before? Why wouldn't they have just continued that? Anyway, people have to be accountable for their own actions and take responsibility. Sounds like she may not be taking responsibility. Some back pain can be relieved from losing weight. If she is obese, she should have been motivated to lose weight for her health, her back, and her child. She should still be trying now. NTA, as someone who has waited almost 10 years because of my health to have a child, I find your sister in law extremely selfish. That being said, I feel like a lot of people just have a child without thinking it through. This comment will totally get me crucified, but I've gone all over the world for health treatments to finally get healthy enough to have a normal life, and now I'm finally ready to try for a child. People like your sister in law are the reason why so many doctors discount women's health and safety and tell them to just have a baby and it'll be fine. My husband, 36 male, and I, 34 male, have been married for 5 years together, for 10. We have a 4-year-old boy of our own, and husband has a 15-year-old son from a previous relationship. For most of his life, Paul, husband's son, has lived with his mom and only visited us once a month due to his mom's job. He moved in with us 2 years ago. Paul has a condition since he was a little child that makes him deaf. His condition gradually gets worse. He can still hear and have a conversation wearing a special headphone that helps him improve his hearing, but he has expressed that wearing a headphone all the time makes him uncomfortable, and he has got more proud about his condition and wants to embrace it. He learnt sign language in order to empower himself. TBH. As he didn't live with us, I wasn't interested in this, but all changed when he moved in with us. I saw him interacting with some friends with the sign language and asked him to teach me to make him feel accepted and comfortable. He was so excited to teach me, and even if he can talk and hear, with the headphone help, we use it as a communication between us. My husband doesn't like sign language. He says that since Paul has headphones, he should make an effort. I grew up in a monolingual house, but hubby grew up in a bilingual house, and he has told me that he was taught that speaking a language in a room where at least one person doesn't is disrespectful. So he thinks that Paul and I speaking in sign language is disrespectful because he doesn't and feels excluded. We were watching a movie yesterday, so Paul started talking to me in sign language about some characters. Thus, my husband got mad at both of us for making him feel excluded and found it disrespectful because he doesn't speak the language, so I told him to learn it. And my stepson and I kept talking in sign language. He said that I make him look like a bad father for speaking the language while he doesn't. He then left the living room and went to our bedroom. He hasn't talked to us yet, beyond the bare minimum. Paul thinks we were some AHs. He says he knows where his dad is coming from since he knows what it's like to feel excluded. And Paul hasn't tried the sign language with me today. AITA? NTA. But your husband is TA. If he feels that left out, then he can learn also. Not enabling sign language in the house because it stops Paul from trying is an abusive attitude and dismissive of his disability. Your husband needs a stern talking to because he is acting horribly here. Colorectal surgeon, 32. You are NTA. Your husband is a massive, ableist a-hole. There is a stupid, damaging, old-fashioned idea that if you don't force deaf and hard of hearing people to use what oral and oral skills they have, if you don't force them to lip read, they will never assimilate. This is absolute horse shit. All it does is make deaf kids feel like shit over something they have no control over. If I were you, I would demand my husband get over himself and learn how to sign to accommodate his son. His son deserves to be able to communicate fully and clearly with everyone he lives with who loves him in the way that is easiest for him. The whole world is built for your hearing husband. You are making him look like a shitty father because he is in this regard if he doesn't learn how to talk to his son. Don't ever apologize for signing. And Paul sounds like a great kid with a huge heart, and I wish I could give him a hug. NTA, but your husband is a giant AH. He has a son that has slowly been losing his hearing, yet thinks it's rude for his family to learn sign language? And he's known about this since he was a child. No wonder he was so excited you asked to learn. His father is making it crystal clear that he doesn't care if Paul gets to the point they can't communicate at all. How sad for him. I'm glad you're in his life, and I hope you rip your husband a new one. What a jerk. BTW. He feels like a bad father because he's being a bad father.